You know, they say daughters look for people who are like their fathers. Usually they start gravitating. By the way, that one is so true.
Are you disagreeing?
Don't even disagree with that one.
Welcome to another episode of Black No Sugar. My name is Anne Linda. We are at Aleph Book Cafe, and today we are going to talk about addiction. So with us, we have Tendo. Tendo is a familiar face on the panel, and we also have a guest, Che. Che, can you tell us about yourself?
Hi, my name is Che. I am a communications consultant, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting to be here. Are you familiar with any statistics about addiction in this country?
I think we are doing very well as Uganda. I mean, if it was representing for addiction, we are actually representing, because I just read that we're at 9.6 in terms of indexes, as compared to 6.3 the whole of Africa. Uganda, we're at 9.3, so past even the average of what Africa is doing. So I think we're doing well in that aspect. It's rather sad though, because I mean, we are so great at alcohol consumption, so low at education outcomes, so low at any other outcomes that would have mattered. So I think, I don't know what we are going to do and how we are, because really addiction is just literally having no self-control and consuming something without actually being in control of yourself. So if alcohol, we're at 9.6, I don't know, maybe it's culture that, you know, it's okay for us to go out more and drink more. I don't know if we start earlier. At least I know I started earlier drinking. I don't know about you people.
Well, first of all, I think a lot of people are addicted to something. And how would we define addiction in this case so that we make it clear what we are talking about? It's like dependence on something, right?
Yeah, addiction is actually, it's a compulsive disorder whereby you basically want to reward your body. Your body is looking for a rewarding effect, so you are compelled to repeatedly use a certain substance or engage in a certain activity just so you can reward your body. The reward can be positive, it can be negative, but if it's an addiction, it's negative. A lot of people look at addiction and relate it to things like drugs, but you can also have an addiction to biting your nails. You can have an addiction to shopping. You can, by the way, some people get withdrawal from shopping addiction and they have no idea. You can be on Instagram, I'm telling you the truth. You can be on Instagram and you're going through a sale and you see like a sale of Black Friday. And then you're like, wow, I missed this sale. And then the rest of the day, you're just irritable. And for you, you think like maybe it's something else, but you're actually addicted to something, because what it causes is it causes withdrawal symptoms. If your body does not get that rewarding effect, your body starts to withdraw. I suffered with addiction. I struggled with alcohol addiction. I did partake in nicotine. I didn't do any hard drugs, but I did. Alcohol was my main substance, and I struggled with it for close to 10 years, but the addiction kicked in the last 5 years. Yeah, so basically it just moved from different steps. It started with alcohol dependence, then it became alcohol abuse, then it became full-blown addiction. Yeah, so that's basically what I would define addiction as. Yeah.
Do you think you have to be diagnosed as an addict in order to be, like, for it to qualify as addiction? Must it be diagnosed by a professional, or you can tell if you're dependent or addicted to something?
Usually you can tell, but the thing with addiction is, one of the things is the denial that you go through. Because one, you are looking to this substance for a sort of comfort, for a sort of reward, to reward your body or to reward your system. So you want to be in denial of the negative effects that it causes. Because addiction, there's nothing positive about addiction. Addiction, usually using a substance, when it gets to the point of addiction, now there are negative and adverse effects that it's having on your life. You are absconding from family duties, you are withdrawing yourself from society, from community. So at this point you are fully dependent on it.
I remember a time when I came into the realization that I had an addiction to my phone or the internet. Yeah. It happened when they when this law of OTT came through, and I was so mad about it. I said, in protest and in rebellion, I'll not pay OTT. And that means if I have to leave Facebook, if I have to leave Twitter, I don't care. And also, you know, people are just exploring the VPN, so they said it takes a lot of data, your phone is not safe. People can link into your accounts easily, like bank accounts. So I thought, okay, I think this is the end of the internet for me, unless I'm on Wi-Fi. So this one day, I decided, of course, not to put any data because I'm not going to pay OTT. And I have no VPN. And I remember every time I would reach out to my phone, like I reached out for so many times, and every time I would get it, and then realize I can't get through the internet, my heart would sink. Then that was like in the morning, but I'm like, no, I can live without this. Like, sure, I mean, don't I have people around me? Am I wrecked on an island? And then I realized later that I was so uncomfortable, like I was sweating. I felt something is missing. Exactly, that's when I thought
You're sweating.
I was breaking into a sweat and feeling very like unsettled, like something is missing in
irritable,
yeah.
you're restless.
Yeah.
And you know the funny thing is, social media has actually, I read an article where somebody phrased it like this, said that social media, people who are behind the social media platforms are the new drug dealers, because they are selling something that people are looking, like every minute, people are looking to see, have I been rewarded for what I've been said? Are there likes? Are there comments? You understand? So it's an addiction, but a lot of people don't understand it because either in their mind they think, you know, other people use social media. Like, how can I be addicted to social media? But just as you explained, all of us have a little bit of an addict to social media. That actually happened to me sometime where I was offline, and trust me, I knew I was offline, but for some reason my hand kept reaching for my phone to check what I don't know. Like all the time, I kept checking. Then there's a time I did a social media cleanse, and I deleted my social media apps. I deleted Facebook, I deleted Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. It was only WhatsApp. But for some reason, I kid you not, every 2-3 minutes, I was reaching for my phone to check something, but what was I checking? There was nothing. Like that was my mind had been programmed to check. Like I was looking for that reward. And every time like I didn't get it, I felt irritable. Like I felt bad. I was like, again, okay, yeah, I forgot. Then you check again and then you're like, you know, that irritation. Yeah, so it's really something that we need to check ourselves on. Yeah, always check how do you react when you do not receive something?
With alcohol, you would say that, oh, if I didn't drink, I mean, it's okay. I can spend the day without drinking. But what happens when you need it for work? Anyway, there are always excuses. I know there are always excuses. And this is like an excuse, but it's valid because, I mean, I need to communicate to people. And it's like, guys don't call you anymore. They need you for a job, they text you. And for some people, they're even social media. I don't know what they call those guys that are on social media. So their work is straight there. So I think it's hard also to create that balance, but also to know that there's always excuses for using things like, I mean, I'll drink and then I'll say, if I don't drink, I won't see my friends, you know? And they're like, who will I hang out with? Even your friends will tell you in the bar, you've come here to take one bottle, you're ashamed to us. Go back home, why did you come?
It's
And
been
then you're like,
normalized. And you know, that's actually a conversation that we really need to have, because as you mentioned, the statistics about the alcoholism rates in Uganda are staggering, to say the least. Because one, I can tell you from experience, just to summarize my experience of addiction, in the last 4 years, between July 2016 and February 2020, my alcoholism had pushed me to a point where I was homeless. Like I wandered the streets of Kampala, literally for 4 years, or 3.5 to say the least. 3.5 to 4 years. I was walking the streets of Kampala like with a handbag. All I had was a handbag and the shoes on my feet. And like I was just surviving the night. I had no place to sleep because I couldn't hold a job anymore. So I couldn't afford to pay the rent. I couldn't afford to feed myself. Okay, I could afford to feed myself, but you see, the habit now had killed my appetite. Like even if I met someone and they gave me 20K, let me budget for you that 20K. First of all, 10,000 is gone because that's already a quarter of UG and cigarettes. That 10,000, of course, I needed data because, you know, proof of life. How are people supposed to know that you're blasting and you know? And then I would be having like 3K left. Now that 3K, God knows what I would use it for. Maybe I would buy airtime, or I don't know. I would buy something. Yeah, but that's how extreme it had got, and a lot of people asked me when I came up with the story. Some people had realized, they saw along the way, they said, man, you guys, have you seen Che? Like, word has started going around that you guys, you know, Che has lost weight. I lost 40 kilos in 2 months. I went from 92 kilograms to 52 because I had stopped eating. I was just smoking cigarettes and I was drinking the crude waraji because, of course, now I couldn't afford the high end. At this point, a quarter of UG at 6,500 was high end for me. My budget was now, I hadn't even said smoking super much, please. Do you know what smoking super much is in the smokers circle? Like, since the economy has failed for you. Like, I was drinking Empire. Empire was 700 shillings. Empire was my drink, like my go-to drink, you get it. So, like, that's basically the line that I had gone to. So I was homeless, I was just wandering the streets. Basically, what I was doing was I was just seeking the next high. I was seeking the next high because, one, I had cut off all contact with my family members. They had reached out to me, but because of the shame I felt, I couldn't go back home and say, you guys, you know what, I need help. Yeah, there was that shame. There was, you know, even the pride of saying, you know, I got this. Like, you know, alcohol is there for me. I don't need to explain myself to anybody. Then a lot of things, like, you know the society we live in. You know how hard the economy is on us, the youth.
I actually want to touch on that. What do you think leads a lot of people to addiction? Like, how do people get to this place?
There's quite a number of reasons, actually. One which is a major one that people actually overlook is genetics, family history. Usually alcoholism runs in families. It does. Like, even if in that generation there is nobody, like maybe like in the previous one there were 3, then maybe it skipped the other, but usually it's genetic. A second thing is coping skills. We have terrible coping skills to society and the things that happen to us. You could be having a bad day, you could be having, maybe you go through a bad breakup. How do you cope? We have not been taught how to have a certain level of emotional intelligence that does not drive us to the extremes where we look to substances for, you know, for some kind of comfort. Also peer pressure, because a lot of people get hooked, and this is actually really common because I've seen a lot of people go down the drain, especially with the hard substances like heroin and cocaine. Experimentation. People get curious. And it's so crazy with this social media, how it's been normalized on social media, how you see Instagram and Snapchat, someone is posting, they're at a party and they're posting pills of mollies and LSD. Like, these are drugs that can kill somebody. Like, one hit can kill somebody if they are not even overdose. There's some, if you take a pill of molly and she takes a pill of molly and I take a pill of molly, we're not going to have the same effect because our bodies are not wired the same. Do you understand? Scary. It's the same way I can tell you by Feb 2020, on average, I was drinking 1.5 liters of plain waraji a day. On average, that's 2 mizinga of crude waraji a day. If I gave you 2 mizinga of UG to drink here right now, you can drop dead and die from alcohol poisoning. But see, I had built that tolerance, and it's not a good thing. And another, like, basically the culture, the conversation around, the tone that is had around alcohol, not just alcohol, because there's nothing wrong with alcohol. It's when it becomes alcohol abuse, it's when it becomes alcohol dependency, alcohol addiction, that it becomes a problem. And it's actually manifesting in front of our eyes on our social media in, you know, even in some alcohol companies are very shameless. I won't mention names, but they're very shameless in their advertising. As much as for them, as long as they put under drink responsibly, like that crumb work of drink responsibly, blah, 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 don't give pregnant women. Blah, blah, blah. But their adverts are actually driving the message, like it's called subliminal messaging, driving the message of telling you that, you know what, our brand should be what drives your lifestyle every day. That's why you see some people, like, you're on your WhatsApp status, and then someone at 6 in the morning is saying, breakfast must be breakfasted. They have UG opening. I'm like, friends, like, can we be guided? Do you understand? And this is something, and like, but you understand, like, it has become normal. And then they bring it up in social, like, it has rewired the generation to think that, you know what, it's normal to take copious amounts of alcohol. There is no conversation around hangover remedies. There's no conversation around what amounts are supposed to be taken at a time. There's no conversation around which amount is going to hinder your faculties at this kind of point. You understand? So
What even drinking responsibly means, I still don't understand.
One glass a month.
I went to my house and maybe drank a carton of Smirnoff. I'm not driving. I'm not. Is that responsible? Like, and I passed out. What is responsible in different contexts?
So there really isn't. There really isn't any any solid strategies or any solid. Basically we're running on just vibes. It's just push, live life, enjoy. If you die, you die.
She just made me remember an advert where actually I don't see I don't see it the way that she has been seeing it. So that's why I laughed a bit, because I saw an advert. I don't know what, some of those circuit alcohol things, and then the guy takes it and then he goes to work. It's like a whole trend of, you know, he's successful and he has all the energy. And we all know how we feel when we take alcohol. It's not that successful. Over chairman, wow, what? Then they go to work and they're like, you know, when you are better tabula, because I mean,
there's even one. There's this ad that really kills me so much, because this is a brand that so many people drink. So many, like, people downtown, not in your uptown circles. Like, it's a well-known brand. But the advert is an askari at work. No, not that one. The askari goes to, like, inspection in the morning, and he's fresh, he's so alert. What? Then the inspector, the guard on duty, comes and says, "Wow, Afande, you're so what?" He was like, "Because I drink XXXX." And then the advert, actually, there are some ladies who will say, they will sing, "No hangover." No, I'm like, what is going on here? Like, what are we doing in Kampala? No hangover. Like, I'm like, is this what is compelling people to buy alcohol? Like, is your selling point the fact that it has no hangover?
It's like popular culture.
This is crazy, because let me tell you, hangovers, people don't understand that hangovers are actually good, because it shows that your liver is actually functioning. If you reach a point where you have a high tolerance, now like me, I reached a point where I would go 3 days without sleeping and just drinking constantly. UG. My body would crash on the 4th day. After 72 hours, that's when my body would crash. And then I would just look for somewhere and I just black out for like 6-7 hours, and then I just start all over again. But I would wake up, imagine drinking for 3 days, I would wake up fresh. You know, fresh, like normal headache, what. This was already a sign that there was something wrong with my inner faculties. My liver had been affected, my kidneys had been affected. Hangovers are normal. People need to understand that it's good to have a hangover. It shows that your body is still functioning. So when I hear communications like, "No hangover," I'm like, are you trying to kill the generation? You understand? Yeah.
When Che was talking about going into some of the things that lead to addiction, like in our contexts, I remembered something that I read somewhere. It's a study. Like, I read it some time back. It's called the Rat Pack, I think, experiment, or it's called Rat Pack. Like, if you put it in there, you'll get it. So this scientist or psychologist put some rats. He wanted to see, to like discover something about addiction, or prove his theory that addiction is deeply rooted into like the social interactions between people and their failure. So their failure, the failure of the support systems, the human support systems around people, are usually replaced by these, like, alcohol will come and fill them in. Disconnection. So the rat pack experiment goes this way. They put a bunch of rats in a cage or wherever, and then they give them water. Like, they put their water with alcohol, no, like water laced with heroin or like some drugs, and some other clean water. So this psychologist discovered that when the rats are together, they usually, if they test the heroin water, they'll not go back to it again. They'll go to the other water without the highs. But once a rat was isolated for a while, they kept on drinking the heroin water until they knocked themselves out and died. And it proved his point that a lot of addiction problems come from people feeling disconnected with each other. It's breakups, like, for instance, you know, like, you're violently ripped away from like a source of love and comfort and warmth, disconnected from their families, a desire to connect with other people, meaning you're feeling disconnected, you know, like that whole social drinking that we call social drinking. Like, it means your friendships are not, probably not being built elsewhere in other healthy ways, so you must find a bonding thing. And I've always found it interesting. And so he had this whole thing of like, can we deal with addiction from that point for people? But also I wanted to ask, like, Tendo, how do you think addiction affects people, other people, like around an addict? Yeah, like, because usually, you know, it's your liver, or
Yes,
whatever.
it's your liver and your lungs. I think it depends. Sometimes, like, maybe people are too close to you. Like, I think your friends usually, you know, when you're an addict, you isolate yourself and you go along with addicts. So your friends may not really be affected because they're doing the things that you're doing. They're happy. But I assume, like, your parents, maybe they want you to go down a certain career path. The fact that you also have to keep lying to people to get money, to actually drink, because you need the money. The fact that even if you're addicted to, for example, work, the fact that now you can't see people that you want to see. She talked about it because you have to isolate yourself because you don't want people to tell you to stop doing this thing that you want to keep on doing because it's rewarding. You don't even understand why they think it's okay for them to tell you that, you know, stop drinking, stop taking, you know, like weed.
On the phone.
Actually, weed is like so common. My mom is always on that. Like, we had dinner, you're all on your phone. We have gone to have a nice time. Everyone is on their phone. No one's talking to the other person. Now even the kids have tabs. So I started to rethink my own thought process. I'm like, why buy a tab for the kids? Should I go and just take it away? But it's like everyone now is on their phone, and she's the only one who is like trying to have a conversation with you. And you just don't understand. And there are always excuses of why you can't stop. But mainly, I think it's that thing that you lie. You have to constantly lie to people where you are, you know, why you're doing what you're doing, when you need money, because you can't obviously work well if your addiction is like to drugs. And not even, I just want to go beyond and say that I don't think that drugs are the only addiction. Even social media, as you said.
Even pornography.
I don't even read as much. By the way, because the other day I was trying to read my books and I took like 5 whole hours. I was like, let me first start by texting people here and get the energy to actually read. And I wasted the whole day. And even my friend was like, you've been here reading all day. And I'm like, yeah, but like not in the way that you think that I've been reading. I've been consulting other people on what I want to read. And I'm like, why did I do that?
When you ask about how other people are affected, when it comes to an addiction, the funny thing is it's everybody else who's affected before you actually get affected. Because everyone else around you realizes that you have a problem, but you can't come to the realization that you do. For example, if you are basically the road to addiction, of course, first of all, you start failing at whatever obligations you have in a certain setting. Be it in a family setting, you start to slack on your, maybe if you're a lady, you start to slack on your chores because either you're sleeping or you're weak or then you start isolating yourself from your family members, you reduce your interaction with them because you start to feel a sort of either shame because you start to believe that they are going to judge you for what you're doing. Especially in family settings, if a husband has an addiction, he's of course going, if it's an addiction to pornography, it's going to affect his relationship with his wife, communication wise, intimacy wise. If it's addiction, if it's a parent who has an addiction problem, their child is not going to get as much love, as much affection, because you're not going to be spending a good amount of time with them. Also, it affects your child because, I mean, children can grow up seeing their mothers or their fathers, you know, slumped on the floor, maybe choking on their own vomit. These are things that stay with children forever. So if you have a daughter who's seeing these things and then eventually she gets into a relationship somehow, because, you know, they say daughters look for people who are like their fathers. Usually they start gravitating. By the way, that one is so true.
I disagree.
Don't even disagree with that one. That one, don't even disagree. Yeah, so if a daughter had an alcoholic father, trust me, it's like subconscious. Like, she is going to look for the traits that her father had. If her father was abusive towards her, she's going to look for an abusive person. She might not know. Like, down the road, she's going to find, like, she might not know from the beginning that this person is abusive, but there are certain characteristics that he displayed that she either downplayed or she let pass because she was relating it to what her fatherly love was like. Then down the road, she enters an abusive relationship and, you know, she passes it off as, that's when she'll be like, why, like that. You find people who say, why do I always attract a certain type of guys? It doesn't happen by accident. it doesn't. There's always a certain kind of trauma. Then you have your workmates, like at work, you'll start failing at your job. Then, like basically, you'll start eliminating yourself from circles that try to separate you from your addiction. If at home they're telling you, you know what, you drink and you party too much, or you do this too much, you're going to start seeking validation somewhere else. You're going to look for a crew of people who engage in what you do. You'll start spending your time with them. Then eventually, those people maybe, they are your enablers. They buy you alcohol, but eventually they'll also notice that, Gema, for you, this guy is too extra. Now even those ones will abandon you. You get annoyed. You get frustrated. So.
Che, you've really tackled like something that I actually also wanted to hear your comments on. Something about how someone can recognize. I think our audience will eventually realize that, okay, if you see these things, then it means that it is time to seek help. Where do you start from in this Uganda to seek help for addiction?
First of all, for an addict, it's very difficult for an addict to tell that they have a problem at a certain stage. Usually they realize when the negative effects have started to materialize. They'll usually realize they have a problem, for example, when they realize that they've been fired from 3 different jobs, when they have been evicted from their house, like where they're staying like 2 or 3 times, when they've been excluded from social gatherings, like that's when you start to notice. But the people around you usually notice earlier. So it's actually advisable for people to have, it's good for you to have a tribe, a support system around you, to have people who are open open, like they give you the harsh truth. They tell you, you know what, you are a brilliant person, you are beautiful, you do this and this, but you need to, like this and this substance or this activity is making you do this and this. And
but usually you've alienated them, so what do you do when you...
Okay, usually you have alienated them. And there are so many people who haven't gotten to that stage. I know people who actually went down the path of addiction. I had a friend who was addicted to shisha. Okay, I've never heard of a shisha addiction, but this chick, I really knew her, like for her, she was addicted. She would wake up, she had her own pot, she had charcoal, she had flavors at her house. Okay, it's okay, but for you, shisha, her shisha, it was like, you see how people be on their phones? For her, that's how she would be on shisha. She's watching movies, she's chilling at the balcony, she's reading a book, shisha. And you know, shisha is terrible because one puff of shisha is equivalent to 60 puffs of a cigarette, of cigarettes. So, like, her voice, first of all, it started affecting her voice. Guys were like, "Man, you need to turn down on your shisha," because her voice had begun being affected. For someone who smokes, I was a very serious smoker. I was a serious smoker. So I know the effects that cigarette smoke or any form of smoke has on your internal organs. When your voice starts to alter because of cigarettes, for me, mine started to alter. I was doing about, for my university days, I was doing about a pack or 2 a day. So I reached a point and my voice began, like up to now, this was not my voice back in the day. My voice broke to sit, like, my voice broke. Like it broke. So at that point, a friend of mine actually came and said, "Che, your voice has changed." I was like, it's just sigala. Like, that's what I would say. I was like, sigala, I just need like some lemon, I just need honey, and be okay. My voice never came back. And it just went downhill from there. I would wake up in the middle of the night, I'm craving a cigarette, but I've burst out into sweat. Like, I would wake up, I'm sweating. Then I would have hallucinations. Like, it just went downhill from there. But by the time these things had manifested, I had no one around me. I had alienated everybody. Even those who had tried to talk to me, my family, my friends, I had alienated everybody, and it was just a dark place. Like, you just fall into this slump of depression. That's when suicidal thoughts start coming in. That's when, you start putting up all these false imaginations, trying to create excuses for the life that you're living. Like, you're really wallowing. I would walk the streets of Kampala, like I would be there for 5 days, I haven't taken a shower.
So at what point, where did you start from when you go to seek for help, or where did you start from?
In this country, first of all, for me, my redemption came during the lockdown. It came during the lockdown. Wow, there's no wow there, because remember, we were locked down. I couldn't move anywhere. We were not authorized to move, so I couldn't seek help. But I had reached a point. I was dealing with. I had gone clean for some time because I had just gotten some money and paid for a house. So I had just settled in, I was calm, you know, a change of environment. My life was a bit calm. But now, of course, we were under lockdown, so really. But of course, I would go to the shop, buy some UG, but I wasn't drinking as much as I was drinking before. So I would drink like a quarter.
So
like
lockdown was like a forced rehab of sorts.
It was like a forced rehab, because now basically it was, yeah, as you said, forced rehab. So what happened is everything was going okay. I had settled, I had begun, you know, starting my digital communications consultancy, you know, planning and strategizing. Like I had a clear head. Now I was just enjoying alcohol. I wasn't abusing it. I was now enjoying alcohol because I was settled, I had a roof over my head, I could get some food, things like that. Then I relapsed because something happened. I fell out of a relationship that I was in at the time, and I just let go. Like in every sense of the word, I let go. I just went, all the progress that I had made out the window. I began smoking again, like chain smoking. I began drinking heavily, and eventually I reached a point where the withdrawal was now just beyond. I had never experienced that kind of withdrawal. I would wake up panting in the middle of the night. My breath, my breathing had been, it was so labored. I just woke up and said, you know what, Che. Like I just had this form of introspection. I really felt like the path I was on, if I went down that road again, I was going to die, because I could feel the effects on my body. My body was letting go.
So how would you advise from your experience someone to support a person struggling with addiction, knowing all that you know now? Yeah. Like what would you want from your support system, or what would you advise a support system to do for a person with addiction?
The best advice I would give them is to just never give up on someone, because that's the worst thing. Usually addicts know that they're struggling with something. They do know. A lot of people think that addicts do things that they don't know. Addicts know that they're struggling. If you see an addict using a cigarette and yet they've reached a point of addiction, they know that this has caused me to be in a certain situation. But by the time they pick up either that cigarette or they pick up that bottle or that glass or whatever, know that there's a struggle that has gone on in their mind and they've lost. They are going through a battle. So you just need to just be empathetic towards them. Have empathy. You might not feel what they're feeling, but know that they're struggling. And an addict has already given up on themselves. That one, just know they've given up on themselves.
What I would want to know is, what does not giving up, not giving up is such an abstract term that even I wouldn't know, like if someone is, what does not giving up mean? Does it mean letting the people go through their addiction phase, and if they come home, you give them, like food and stuff? Yeah. Does it mean words of encouragement? Does it mean taking them to like a therapist? Does it mean binding their hands and dragging them there? What does not giving up look like?
Yeah. First of all, if you can, let me just start by saying this. You cannot help an addict if they don't believe they need help. However much an addict will be choking in his own vomit or her own vomit on the floor, drunk out of their mind. They won't even know what day it is, what time it is, and they won't be able to have, they will not. If they do not want to get help, they will not. Yeah. So usually you just let them, sometimes it's best to let experience be the best teacher for some people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there some laws in this country that govern alcohol and drug abuse that you know of, Tendo?
I don't know a lot of laws, but I know that they were trying to develop something, or they are currently trying to develop something around alcohol. Actually, I think they are trying to even increase the age of consumption to 21 rather than 18. But just as she has said, I think even the age of consumption is not, because I started drinking alcohol in S2, and I would access it, and no one ever asked me any questions. I go to shops and I find 9-year-olds purchasing cigarettes and alcohol, and no one really asks them, like, are you buying this for your dad? Exactly. It's just like assumed that you're taking it somewhere. Yes. So I think with that, even with this policy coming in mind, I think there was one on Cuba when I was at campus, because it was so much when I was in, like, we did so much of Cuba.
What is Cuba?
it's like
It's
Indian
a
hemp
tobacco
as if-
thing, but you put it under your
tongue.
and then it gives
Yeah.
you like a small high, so you have to keep on doing it for you to get
People
like
used to
really,
do it in
really
high
high.
school. I failed.
Yeah, in high school. I think it was so common that almost like so many people did it. I did a bit of it. I don't think it helps anyway. I even don't think cigarettes help. So with knowing that, I think then the law, I think it's so hard because of, you know, capitalism. Companies are giving so much tax. And even when we put the tax that is so high, people still consume. I mean, if I'm addicted to alcohol, even if you say it's 20,000, now my battle is how do I get that 20,000? It's not like how I'll do with clothes and I'm like, where can I find a cheap alternative? Or I'll just buy two for the whole month, that's fine. If I'm going to be like, no, I need to consume this and I need to get it. So with that policy, I'm thinking if they are developing one, then we really need to actually engage people that are working within these projects of addiction. And people that have been addicted before actually, and then also get to know what things that can really prevent people from purchasing, but also using, but also providing services that can help people to be rehabilitated when they need them that are cheap.
Yeah.
Because now it's like you have to pay
That's
an arm
actually
and a
very,
leg.
that's very true.
Even when
That's
you
very
feel
true.
it, you can't get the help. So we need like cheap. I was reading something about some lady, I don't remember her name, she was on Facebook, but she was posting how much she had to pay a lot, and even then the doctors did not know what to do. They're beating up people, tying them up. It's like you're mad or something, which is actually the worst.
I have so many friends who have been taken to rehabilitation centers and they've escaped. Not once, not twice, 3 times. They've escaped climbing walls and getting out and running. So as she said, they need to make cheap rehabilitation centers because a lot of people think that addiction is only in the elite circles. We as you know, me, I call us urban corporate poor. We have this mentality that our life is just what between our eyes and what we see on our smartphones and what is in our circles. If you go down to the ghettos of places like Bakuli, people are really struggling. Ghetto kids, even women are really struggling with addiction. These are people who can't afford a chapati in a day, but they can afford to go and buy a ticket of heroin. You understand? And then you come telling them about rehabilitation services that cost $300 a week. There needs to be some kind of affordable rehabilitation system in place.
And a good one. Because when people say like for people who are poor, they just do like 5K and then they're like, we'll give them the basics. Like really good services with
there is Butavika. I just discovered this year. It's not just a place where they treat advanced mental health issues or illness like schizophrenia, because that's what people think it's for. And it's a government institution. It is a place where you can go and have addiction counseling for addiction at no cost apparently, or like at a subsidized cost. I've had a few people go there, so now I know it's like cheap or close to free. So I would actually want our audience out there to know, and people to know, that Butavika is not just a hospital, it is also for, like, it has all these services.
Also the stigma around it. I feel like people have this stigma around actually seeking help in Butavika. It's like if you go there, even when you have a mental illness, we're like, she's mad. Someone actually, my friend told me the other day, work so hard so that you have money. You go to Nakasero when you have a mental health issue. Jebaku lifting ila kubutanda nebagamba Tendo is mad. Nebaga give us some privacy. Get out so that we can deal with our patients other than Butavika where they'll let you run free in their uniforms and all that. And I'm like, but I'll be sick. Like, does it matter where I'm receiving help from? So it's that even that stigma.
Dignity of people matters. So until I think we get to that point where we have resources that are like professional to handle these things, it looks like we only have each other, like us are the addicts and other people, or other people and us. So what can we, like, just briefly, can you give us tips on what the community can do to curb this thing before it happens, or to curb addiction before it happens? What are some of the, how can we be responsible in this whole struggle towards addiction to prevent others from being a part of it, or to prevent, because we've talked about support?
Well, from my experience, I really wish, honestly, a lot of things that I wish I had earlier was more guidance. More like someone had spoken to me about the things that you are going to find out in life, experience in life. Because honestly, for me, I think my experimentation with alcohol and cigarettes and substances, how I got hooked onto it was because I experimented with somebody who I was in a relationship with at the time. And then eventually, even as the relationship progressed, until the time that we broke up, this person actually now had noticed that I had become addicted to it, and then now started faulting me over that. So, like, we just need to have safe spaces for, like, hardcore truths on the truths about alcohol use and substance use, because those are the greatest addictions that we're struggling with. These shopping addictions, those ones can be on the side. Pornography is also a very huge one, although that one pornography needs professional counseling, because that now goes beyond. It's both psychological, it's emotional, like it's psychological, emotional. It covers very many dimensions. You need professional help for that. But we need to have safe spaces and speak the truth about alcohol use, not just walking around. I see people having. You see somebody having a 1-year-old birthday party and the place is just littered with, and there are other kids are growing up seeing bottles. By the time this child reaches 18, why won't they say, like, you guys, I grew up around Jameson and I grew up around Hennessy, like, this is cool. Like, let's do this. Like, it's lit. Why not?
So I think, indeed, we all have addicts don't make themselves, and they don't happen, like the cliche goes, in a vacuum. They are made by society and societal norms. So I think it's really important to be responsible towards ourselves, but also towards other people and the environments we create. So thank you, ladies. This has been such an insightful discussion. Che, thank you so much for those insights. So this is the end of our episode. We are at Aleph Book Cafe. Come here for coffee and great dawa tea and books. Do you have something to say about addiction, about the topic we've been talking about? Leave us a comment, subscribe and share on your platforms. Till next time.